This is part 3 of section 3.6. We need to solve this inequality. And we actually have a lot of work to do before we can get there. The first thing we have to do is we need a 0, which means I need to subtract 2 from both sides. That gives me x over x plus 2 minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so I have the 0 now. Now I'm only allowed to have one fraction, so that means I need a common denominator here, which means I'm going to change this 2 into 2 over x plus 2, and I'm going to put an x plus 2 up here as well. Okay, now they have a common denominator, so I can combine them. X minus 2 times x plus 2 over x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. Now I'm going to distribute the negative 2. Okay, and then combine like terms. That is negative x minus 4 over x plus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. Okay, now you can work it from here. A lot of people don't like this double negative in here, and there is something, I'm going to show you that you can do it, but I'm not going to use this. I would be allowed to, this is optional right here. It would change the rest of the way the problem works too. If I factor a negative out of that top, and then multiply both sides by negative 1, that negative 1 would cancel that. I would have x plus 4 over x plus 2. And then I would still have 0 over here, but when I multiply both sides by a negative number, I have to flip the sign around. So you could do this and then use this to do your chart. It's just an option, and so since I don't expect all of you to see that, I'm not going to work it that way, but that would work. Okay, so I need to figure out what gives me a 0. I get a 0 with a negative 2 down here. And if I plug in a 4 here, I get negative 8, but if I plug in a negative 4, negative 4 is 4, 4 minus 4 is 0, so negative 4. Okay. Make my chart. I need a negative 4. I need negative 2. And I'm going to put negative x minus 4 and x plus 2. A number smaller than 4 would be negative 5. Between negative 4 and negative 2, I can use negative 3. Larger than negative 2, I'll use 0. Be careful with this one. If I plug in a negative 5, that becomes positive 5 minus 4, so that's positive. Negative 5 plus 2, negative 5 plus 2 is negative. Okay, so if I plug in a negative 3, that's going to be positive 3 minus 4, which is negative. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative. Okay, now plug in 0, that's 0 minus 4, which is negative, and 0 plus 2 is positive. So overall, I have a negative, positive, negative using your sign rules. Now remember, I'm not using this part down here, we're using this, and you need to figure out whether you need to be greater than, or whether you're looking for a positive or a negative. You don't want to look up here because you didn't have a 0. You make sure you look at one where you have a 0, so right here. I'm looking for this thing to be bigger than 0, so I'm looking for my positive answer, which is here. And I just need to decide about my endpoints. This has an equal to, so in general, I'm allowed to include my endpoints. I'm just not allowed to use anything that comes from the bottom. Negative 2 came from the bottom, so that's going to be parentheses there. And you're going to have a bracket here. So your answer in interval notation would be negative 4 with a bracket, negative 2 with parentheses. And then if you put them on the graph, and shade, and you have your final answer. This really isn't that tricky. And I hope that you are able to see the connection with graphing. Otherwise, it feels like this section's just thrown in out of the middle of nowhere.